Good morning. We'll resume our tour of the extinction process, finishing off a few things on the United States. One thing we can do is restore coastal marshes. These are very important for birds, and they've just mostly disappeared. They can also be used for detoxification, and you get a huge bang for the buck on them. Of course, if global warming really gets going and malaria returns to the United States, I don't think we'll be able to afford them, so we'll have to destroy them at that point. And that won't happen for a few years, but there's a good prospect it will. Other areas, of course, are the ocean, and this is a worldwide problem. For us, what we can do is try to use decreased fertilizer, so there's less runoff into the Gulf, less areas of just truly dead sea as the algae reproduce and suck up the oxygen. We are working on helping the level of just sea life in general. There's been a program to limit catches. This is relatively recent, but it seems to have some success indirectly, because as the key fish come back, the rest of the health of the ocean improves. There are certain areas in the ecosystem which are specifically important. One is the menhaden. It's a whole group of fish, and some of them are what we call, they're filter feeders, and some of them feed on zooplankton, that's tiny little animals. The others feed on phytoplankton, and the phytoplankton are the ones that cause trouble. They're the ones that cause the production of the bright red tide, which looks great but is deadly, and also contribute to the dead seas. The process of limiting the catch is very helpful and indirectly helps the ecosystem. One thing we just simply will have to do more is set up preserves. There are theoretically two ways to go. One is the traditional way, you set up fixed preserves. Another would be alternating preserves, which take a lot of science to figure out how well to do it, but we simply have to have areas where we cannot fish. Another is limiting the factory farming of the ocean that goes after the bottom. You can't restore the ecosystem of the ocean floor very quickly. Setting up preserves, on the other hand, can replenish the area that's above the bottom floor, and we have to keep going on this. Looking worldwide, there are a number of areas in the broad sense, of course. The major area is simply decreasing the population explosion, and areas we've mentioned before, the preservation of child health and raising the status of women and raising the status of society in general, seems to cut back on the population explosion, and actually in some areas puts it in overdrive. The issue of global warming, we really can't predict this exactly. but it certainly seems prudent to do something about it, and so we have all the measures that that we know about. I won't go into them all now. The certain areas are at great danger. One, of course, is the coral reefs, which have been pretty much severely damaged now. The other areas like the Sahel below the Sahara, and of course in the United States we run a high risk of developing dust bowls in multiple areas of particularly the Midwest and Texas. Worldwide, there are many special areas that we have to be concerned about. China is a major one of them. It has all kinds of things that are not good going on. Basic statistics, it has 20% of the world's population, it has 11% of the arable land, and it has only 7% of the fresh water. And the fresh water is primarily in the south of China along the major rivers, and the north is pretty much a disaster. The north suffers from pollution, from actual real poisoning of the soil, and we don't have a full picture on just where all of it came from. We have the Communist Party that runs the whole country very vigorously, but actual law-abiding is very weak, and there's huge problems with the people who are running the country, the local authorities, who have become very corrupt and allow all kinds of bad stuff to go on. And they're at danger for changes from global warming. They're from a deterioration of the entire ecosystem, and also the effects that they have on neighboring countries. Starting off, to mitigate this is number one would be for them to look at the people who are running the country, do some introspection. There's a very heavy proportion of ex-engineers in control of the country, and one thing they need to do is start thinking really in terms of other scientific disciplines, and it would be helpful if they replace a large number of the engineers by biologists and start thinking in that direction. The engineers are good at producing dams, but they're really not very good at ecosystems, and they have to start working on that. I'll pick this up next time.